Hello and welcome to the Digital Insight, the technology, procurement and supply chain podcast that delivers valuable C-level perspective into the core issues surrounding business transformation and digital disruption. Each episode will bring you the most inspiring executive insights from those who are leading transformation strategies within the world's biggest and best-known companies. The Digital Insight. Disrupt, transform, evolve.
Hello there, and welcome to the Digital Insight, the official podcast series for Interface and CPO Strategy magazines. Today, we have the pleasure of being joined by Paul J. Bailo, a leading digital transformation expert. Paul has had experience working for some of the biggest blue chip firms on the planet, including MasterCard, American Express, GE Money, Citibank, and the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. Today, Paul will be kicking off a 3-part series on digital transformation, the first of which deals with digital leadership. So, Paul, welcome back to the Digital Insight. Always a pleasure to speak to you.
Thanks for having me, Andrew.
Obviously, we're doing a 3-part series on digital transformation, sort of looking into some of your expertise and experience in this realm. And today, I believe we're talking about the importance of leadership within a digital transformation. And I guess quite often people will become a little bit fixated on the software or the tools or the systems that are going to get put into place. But I believe you see human leadership, that human element of a digital transformation, as being just as important.
Absolutely. I don't see how any organization in this current world could survive without a true digital leadership model where the forefront and the cornerstone of every business is digital. And the leadership model of being that physical world has now been defunct. The fact that with the coronavirus coming to play and people working from home, people really have to develop their digital talents in relationship to their digital leadership. How do you become part of that employee's moral values, become part of their mental capacity? How do they hear your voice for leadership and guidance? And how do you do this without physically being next to that person? And how do you actually lead in this world of digital without a physical person being there? And what I've seen in my experience and in my own research, one of the critical pieces to be a real digital leader is to have vision, the ability to have this idea of what things could be like in this art of digital transformation. And vision's everything. It's how do I take these pieces of technology and people and process and look towards the future, allowing us to get from point A to point B, but keep us moving forward for today, keep us moving forward for today plus for tomorrow, and then keep us moving from tomorrow plus one. Always encapsulating this idea of a holistic digital strategy for the business of the future. What you've seen 6 months ago is that people were sort of thinking about digital. Some organizations had digital in a box. Some people had digital in the corner. Some people didn't have a digital, chief digital officer. Fast forward today, if you didn't have a digital model with this coronavirus, you're dead in the waters, right? So I believe the best thing that ever happened to digital and data and digital transformation is where organizations got a kick in the butt because they realize that digital transformation is so important, and they're seeing cracks and fractures in their leadership model that they don't have a digital leadership framework where they have a vision for digital. And digital is everything in transformation. It's the root cause or the root reason an organization exists is in that digital core. And it's this idea of constant, endless, unforgiving change. Always looking for better, always looking for better, always looking to make things better, always looking to make the customer experience better, always looking at new technologies and put it into a strategy and a vision. And in my experience, digital leaders are extremely curious. They're always looking for the next thing. They're always interested in how do you make this work. They're always interested in how can you make a process go from 5 steps to 2 steps, from 2 steps to no steps, and still get the value. And one of the critical things that I've seen is that very few digital leaders have the ability to mold the future. They have an idea of what the vision should be, but they have a hard time of actually executing that into the future. By looking to the future, it's not sort of this hazy thing. It's a roadmap to where we're going to go. And in order to do this, you not only have to have the vision, but you have to have the curiosity in order to put those pieces together in relationship to moving that organization forward. And you can't do this alone, right? You can't do this alone. So one of the critical pieces as a digital leader is this idea of collaboration. Many hands make, light work. And it's this idea of understanding what all the departments in the organizations bring to bear. How can they add value? How do you get these organizations to work together for one successful project or one successful event? Understanding how we're all going to make this happen, and the digital leaders need to glue this all together, be it a digital marketing campaign, to a digital operation, to creating a new digital product, to understanding the customer experience. A chief digital officer standing alone cannot do this. The chief digital officer leads the organization in transformation, and everyone else follows and glues it all together on the C level, to the SVP level, to the VP level, to the manager level. It's this gluing of the culture together. And one of the critical components of a chief digital officer or a leader of digital is understanding this culture. If the culture does not foster change and foster transformation and looking to the future while keeping everything working today, they will fail. You have to be keeping the lights on today and building the future lighthouse of tomorrow. And you're going to do this in a systematic way, and you're going to bring some people along coming with you really nicely. You're going to bring some people along kicking and screaming, because the two greatest changes, or the two greatest constants in the world, is what scares a lot of people, which is one, constant, endless change. There's nowhere around this. And digital transformation is all about constant change. And the other side of the coin is what everyone's looking for is, once again, this idea of being loved and being fit in and to be part of the team. So digital leaders have this very high level of EQ, of understanding where people are and what scares people. And then how do you get them all to work? Now, what a digital leader also does is has this idea of test and learn and the ability to fail, right? No one likes to fail, but you really have to embrace this idea of failing, and experimenting in a sense with the data, with the ability to think out of the box, with the ability to think forwardly, with thinking differently, having fun with some of the questions that you might be pondering, and understanding that it may lead to nothing, but it may lead to some insights. It's almost like having a hypothesis. Like going to getting my PhD is all about finding the truth. But finding the truth deals with having a hypothesis, which is the king of the mountain. And then you have a null hypothesis, which is the truth. And every day, every moment, you're trying to topple that king of the mountain with your null hypothesis to do a test of a hypothesis. So you're always thinking about testing. You're always thinking about experimenting. You're always thinking about understanding what would be useful today may not be useful tomorrow. What's successful today may not be successful tomorrow. So your mind is constantly seeing what the world is and what the world could be and what the world should be in your organization. And it's the idea of giving the people the confidence and the understanding to fail and to naturally be innovative. Now, in experimentation, I think it's really being very creative. And being creative is a very human component. It's an individual component. Innovation is the commercialization of creativity. So you have to get people to be thinking about what their God-given gifts of being creative. Every human being is creative. It's the question of can you get that out of the person? Can you get them to be thinking very creatively about your product or your service, about your organization, or about a process, and then take it to that innovation step? Always feeling that you could be motivating the employee, always feeling that, yes, they're going to fail, but doesn't mean it has to destroy you. It means that it will excite you to do better. And once again, it's this world of really being, in this world of experimentation. It's like when my brother and I, for Christmas, we always used to get chemistry sets. We used to smoke out the house, and my mom and dad be yelling at us because they thought the house was on fire, or we made this concoction of rotten egg gas, and the house smelt for 3 weeks. It's just sort of having fun with tinkering around and thinking about things and putting different things together. One other component in the model of a digital leader, you have to have a big Rolodex. You have to have a big contact list in your iPhone. You have to have a great network of different people from different areas that you could call upon. And I mean real networking, right? This idea of everyone helping each other and understanding that you may need people in the academic world, you may need people in the artistic world, you may need people in the philosophical world, you may need high-end programmers. You need all these people at your beck and call when you need them to build these solid relationships in order to share the wealth of knowledge. So, in my opinion, it doesn't help a digital leader to network in the same area that they're familiar with. They have to break out of their own shell and network and build deep relationships, working relationships outside of their norm. A lot of people say, you're in digital, so you're going to go to a digital conference. That's great. I love to go to digital conferences. I love to speak at digital conferences. However, I also go to other conferences which have nothing to do with digital or data. I'm interested in aerospace. I go to aerospace conferences to see about what's happening in the aviation space. I go to museums to wire my mind differently, to see the world differently, where there might be something in that artwork that intrigues me, that gets my brain to be working and thinking about problems differently. So when we start talking about networking, digital leaders need to know that they have to expand their proficiency in networking. They need to look outside what they're comfortable with. They need to extend outside of the business world. They need to go into the academic world. They need to go into the art world. They need to sort of build this mosaic of contacts with people seeing the world differently. And when you put this all together, it's like a mixed up type of soup. But what comes out is unbelievable. What comes out is very interesting, very forward thinking digital transformation, where the organization could go from where they are today to the future without too much angst in the
Mm.
system.
Yeah, I mean, you talk very eloquently there about kind of what are the ideal kind of outcomes of a really rich work culture, if you like. How easy is that to achieve, would you say?
It's not easy at all. You have to work at it. It's not. It's none of what we just described is easy. It is a grind. You have to be open to it. I think you have to have the right value system to it. I mean, think about what we're talking about, Andrew. It's sort of crazy, you know. You're successful, and then the next day you're not successful. I remember leading a multi-million-dollar project at American Express, and highly successful, building a marketing campaign system for the entire company, and great accolades off the charts, have the patent on it. Me and my team did unbelievable work. After it was all celebrated, everyone was really happy. Next day I called everyone into my office and said, okay, how do we make this better? Let's blow it up, what we just finished over the last year and a half. Let's start again. This is not normal thinking, but it is the thinking of a digital leader. It's the idea that the day it is successful is the day it's antiquated. So you have to rewire your mind that it can always be better. And this is not new. This is how nature works. It's called evolution, right? Everything is constantly changing for the better depending on the environment or depending on the conditions that we're living in. So when you start thinking about the digital leadership, I don't think it's just comes naturally. It's an art form. It's something you have to work on. It's something you have to rewire your brain on. It's you have to read about it. You have to be thinking about it. You have to be talking about it. You have to be meeting people about this. And this is where I think a lot of organizations were caught off guard. That within 4 weeks they went from this monolithic type of organization being thrust into this world with the virus into a 100% digital world. And once again, you see the fractures in the process, fractures in the people, fractures in the technology, fractures in the leadership. And then everyone's scratching their head. Now, everyone's saying we're digital. We need to get new talent in. We need to get a new model in of leadership. We need to get different types of people in, right? Because they can't wait to build this up. They have to be buying the people with that right mindset. And there's only a few of us, really. When you think about the demand to the people who've done this, to get that brain power that you need from a digital leader to not only understand the vision, but the ability to convince, persuade, and influence, who also know about data, because the fuel of digital transformation is the data, who also understand technology and also understand leadership. These aren't easy things to do, and they're very different mindsets. So I don't think anyone is really born this way. I think you actually have to train your mind this way to play in all these areas. And once again, I think it's extremely hard for most people.
Have you sort of come across any kind of common pitfalls, if you like, of people in this area where, kind of common mistakes that maybe are made?
Yeah, Andrew, great question. Number one is thinking they have the people's support and they don't. Thinking they actually have the leadership and the inspiration of the people and they don't. Thinking that what they suggested works without testing it out and trying it out. Just jumping in without doing, A/B testing or really having the lack of data to support the thinking. I say that all the time. The ability just to talk and say the right words, that is a complete fake. Talk the language, just intertwine certain words without the substance, without truly understanding the details of data and data analytics and building algorithms. The ability to really talk to people but not really having empathy for people, that is just a killer. People are smart. They want to know that you're going to walk through fire with them, that you're going to walk through the war zone with them. This idea of saying I'm in a position of positional power, those days are over. People don't want that. They want a leader who's leading from the front. They want someone who's going to be with them all day and night to make sure works. They want someone to care for them and love them. They want someone who has the vision and the experience and the knowledge and the know-how and the ability to assess risk very quickly. And once again, these qualifications are not easily found. These are hard attributes to find in the current workforce. There's a limited amount of people who could do this.
And I guess also primarily, I mean, we've been discussing getting a certain amount of buy-in from the team and some of the people that face, if you like. I guess also you're getting a buy-in from above as well, aren't you?
Exactly. So I think it's a little bit of, can you sell the idea? And I'm not too sure if it's buy-in. I think it's sort of coming to Jesus meeting, right? So it's sort of like, you want to present it, but you don't want to force anyone. You want to sort of lay it out and say, here's what I see. Here's what the data is saying. Here's what the marketplace is saying. Here's what we're doing. Here's what's not working. Here's a better idea. What do you think? So a lot of times leaders will try to sell the idea. I usually like to get their minds and let it come to them, right? A lot of times if you lay this out and you put the story down, they will accept the story of data and they will accept the story of digital and they will accept this idea of digital change and transformation in the story. If you could tell it in a way that really touches their heart and touches their day to day so that they understand that what we're doing today will not work tomorrow. It's that simple. And it's understanding this idea of being digitally fluent, but really understanding the people. It's understanding the insights of the people. In my experience, what I've always tried to do is look for all the pebbles in people's shoes that where there's pain. Right? Sometimes people could handle the big issues greater than the little pebbles, because those pebbles in your shoe grind on your foot and cause pain on a daily basis. As a digital leader, you want to try to remove those pebbles from the shoe and understand what the people are really going through, and to live their pain, live their lives, so that you could show them in a very creative, innovative way that there's a better way to do this. And to instill in them this idea of self leadership, this idea that you could do this, that I have your back, that I have you covered. I want you to take the risk. I want you to work together better than you've ever have. I want you to fail, and I will be there to help pick you up without losing your job, without getting fired, without looking bad. But this is what has to happen in this idea of this digital leadership model, but only quicker and faster, using greater technology, more advancements in technology, and fueled by data. And if we don't have all these pieces, I just don't see how organizations are going to survive. I just don't see how they're going to do it.
Yeah, I mean, certainly, we're sort of hearing more and more about the kind of the advantages to failing, aren't we? And the fact that it shouldn't be seen as failing at all. It's testing, and it's progressing in many respects, which is different, isn't it? I mean, we wouldn't have to go that far back in time, and the thought of deliberately failing or being able to fail would have been unheard of, wouldn't it?
Well, actually, excellent point. I think we've all failed, right? I think historically everyone failed, but they covered it under the rug, let's say, or hid it, or put it in the closet, because people weren't rewarded for failing, and people looked down upon failing. But life is made for us to fail. It's like a child. If you have a newborn baby, the baby just sort of is in the cooing in the crib, and then as the baby develops, it starts moving around, and then it turns over and starts crawling. And as it starts crawling, it starts to stand up, and it falls down. Then it says, "Wow, okay, I learned something. Let me try this again." Then the little baby or toddler will start standing up and stand up a little bit more, and then fall down. So this is who we are as humans. I mean, this is no different than evolution, that we try and fail. We try and fail, but every time, before you know it, the little child is actually standing on his or her own, and then takes a step, falls down, takes another step, falls down. But slowly but surely, the child then starts walking, and then running, and then does the marathon. But failure is just part of how we learn. We put the social black cloud over it, but it's how God made us. It's how we learn. We touch things, our fingers burnt. We're like, oh, that we shouldn't touch the stove. It's just how we learn in our psyche. So historically, we've all failed, but we've hid it in the closet with all the other skeletons everyone has, as opposed to saying, look, it didn't work. Okay, we tried, it didn't work. I didn't mean for it not to work. It's just, and here's the reasons why. Failure to me would be if the fact you don't realize why it failed, why it didn't work, why it wasn't successful. Because in my own personal experiences, my hardest failures and my greatest failures have actually been my greatest areas of growth. In your success, you don't learn as much in your successes as your failures. So in looking for a great digital leader, you want to make sure this person's failed a lot and has been through everything. Because that's the person who could see around the corners. That's the person who could understand really what's going to work and what's not. That's the person who could really smell out what is true and what's not. So failure isn't anything new. Failure is what we do on a regular basis. We just, for some reasons, in the world today, we think failure is bad. We didn't create failure. It's how we learn as human beings.
And obviously, there are sort of very many kind of high-profile digital brands now that are actively encouraging that, aren't they?
Yeah, I think they're just taking it out of the closet and saying, "Look, this is who we are." Now Now, at some point, you can't have a career that you constantly fail, and you can't work for a company you constantly fail, right? So the concept, once again, in the right moral value and cultural system is the goal isn't to fail. The goal is to be successful as best as you can, but don't ostracize the person who took the risk and did everything in that person's power to be successful. But sometimes you miss something. Sometimes you miss steps. Sometimes the market doesn't agree with you. Things happen. It's who we are. But make sure you take those learnings so it doesn't happen again. So the next time you will be successful. The goal is to be successful. The goal is to build new products and to build new services and to make the world a better place and to be successful. However, that's not 100% of the time. In order to be successful, you have to fail like 95% of the time, because that's where you're going to be learning. But that's not the goal. The goal is to be successful, but the formula to success is failure. Because those would be your greatest moments of strength. Those will be your greatest moments of growing and learning and maturing as a leader.
And to kind of recap in terms of the attributes that make a good digital leader, what would you say are the three most important attributes that they must possess?
Yeah, number one, be human. Number two, and by being human, I mean be yourself, be comfortable in your skin, speak the truth, but be yourself, be that human people that people want to believe in. Two, have a vision that people can understand, that's emotionally connected, that tells a good story, something that people could feel and taste and believe in and be powerful. And then be curious. Be curious about data, be curious about technology, be curious about the world, be curious about many different things so it could shape your thinking in formulating the best digital transformation solution around. And realize in being curious, you may not have the right answers, but by being curious, it could help you solidify the right answer. So it's really being human, it's having vision and being curious. I would just say, once again, this is not easy, right? So this is not easy. This is not something you wake up and say, I'm going to be a digital leader. This is something you work at. I'm interested in baseball. Some of the best baseball players are the people who basically come to training weeks early, who come to the field 2 hours early, who after a game spend another 2 hours practicing. If you look at any great leader, any great baseball player, any great soccer player, any great hockey player, it's all in the practice. It's all in fine-tuning your skill. A digital leader has to be in the mindset of constantly learning, constantly questioning, constantly thinking about what is true and what is not true. So this is not something you go to school for. This isn't something that you just sort of stumble upon. This is something you become. And the best digital leaders, this is who they are. They're naturally curious. They naturally have a vision. They naturally gravitate to technology, and they love people. Once again, it's all about the people. If you can't assess the people and you can't get people in their minds, because my belief is the way people feel will drive their performance and their behaviors. So if the people aren't feeling good about your leadership, about your vision, or about your style, you have to fix it so that people are going to be inspired by you. And that means to be in their heart, minds, and soul, where people really want to work with you and believe in you and trust you and love you to do really great, cool stuff. And once again, this is really a self-evaluation of your own leadership style and your own skills to be true to yourself. What are you good at? What are you bad at? What do you need to work on? And no one's perfect. But once again, in my experience in this current time, there's very few people have all of this. This is something you've been working on for years.
Thank you for listening to the Digital Insight Podcast in association with theinterface.net and cpostrategy.com. The Digital Insight is brought to you by B2E Media Limited. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Please remember to subscribe, rate and review. And don't forget to check out our podcast archive at www.b2e-media.com/The Digital Insight.